Well, cuz.
What does the TGS DON stand for?
That is an extremely good question. You know how mafias always had?
Yes.
Yeah. This is an illustration of the hierarchy in this shop.
He should be Don TGS, but he is the village idiot.
No.
Yes.
TGS,
Don.
period, Don. So,
Are you sure you're not just Donald? So you're more Daffy kind of that guy.
I don't see a Don on your hat.
No, you know what you see on my hat? Camouflage. You don't even see my hat. Anyway, guys, welcome to another TGS Podcast, and I am joined here by Nick Horton and Sasha Novakovic. And today we're going to be talking about social media and shooting, or the public's perception of shooting social media.
Yes, or alternatively, social media, we're kind of stuck with it. Do we use it to our best advantage?
And what could we change for the better, potentially?
What could we change for the better? I can't help but think that when you, if I go back a step, I'm 66, so I'm very much from a different generation. I'm not.
You don't look it.
Thank you. You look 75. I'm not tech savvy in any way, shape or form. Computers frequently break when I touch them. But I have some kind of concept of some of the underlying principles behind all this. And particularly the fact that the shooting community doesn't seem very good at engaging with the world outside of shooting. One of the comments that I made on the previous podcast that we did at the time of I think it was the first general license business.
With Dan from Basque.
With Dan Reynolds from Basque. It was a comment aimed at the gun trade. And in its simplest form, it was this. Many of the bigger operators within the gun trade have their own PR departments. They've got media staff, people who do nothing but sit all day and engage with the media in order to boost the sales of their companies. Only one, and I'm happy to mention them, it's GNK, have seen fit to devote any time to some of the broader issues that affect shooting and how to get that degree of engagement between people who shoot themselves as major suppliers of shooting equipment, therefore whose entire business structure depends upon the continuance of shooting, and the people outside of the sphere of shooting who, whichever end of that scale you look at, they are either the decision makers or they are the people at the other end of the scale who by sheer weight of numbers influence the lesser number of decision makers at the top of that pile.
Right.
So one of the things that crosses my mind is that at an individual level we may well be entering a period when we need to be doing more individually. Personally, each of us should become an ambassador for shooting, and we should be looking towards becoming more politically engaged.
I agree. However, I also feel like we pay money to organisations to look after us on these fronts. As much as we should all be intelligent operators, and there's a lot that one can do to undo some of the good work that's done, I don't feel enough good work is done by the people who have lots and lots of money. You know, we put forward a fairly good front here, and we're a pretty small gun shop, but we devote a lot of our time to promoting shooting sports and countryside sports because that is our passion. And certainly we saw a hole that was only being filled by a couple of people that needed to be filled by more of people to promote shooting sports, because it is important.
It is.
I feel like the big organisations should be doing more to advertise, as you said, to the wider public, and that's the audience, because we can all go round and, as Sasha would say, can I say it?
Masturbate for the shooting community?
That's the one.
Yeah.
You know, produce content that says we're the best, that no one else cares about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in a positive sense, and although I'm not privy to anything that might be confidential, I'm very pleased to be able to tell you that I know for a fact that upping their game is a route that Basque are going down at the moment. I think a penny is dropped that the previous engagement with social media by BASC was not very dramatic. I think I've said this before, I'm a great supporter of Basque, but that doesn't mean that when they need to be beaten with a big stick, that it's not going to be me that does it.
It's not blind loyalty.
No, just as a for instance, they had until recently, they do indeed still have a YouTube video channel where they've had videos that have been on it for donkey's years who have got viewer numbers in low hundreds. The number of people who subscribe to that channel, the last time I looked at it, which was a few days ago, was barely 10,000, and it's been operational for the best part of 10 years. Your channel, which has been operating a lot less long, has significantly less in the way of resource, has now got close on 30,000.
Nearly 31.
Yeah, 31,000, 3 times the number of subscribers, and you only have to look at the individual counts on each video to see the speed with which views are racked up, and the fact that you have significant market penetration. And just really to pick up on something that Sasha said previously, which is that producing video content, producing it of a good quality, is a skill and an art form that Sasha is especially skilled at. But making video content that's watchable and has a relevance to people who do not necessarily shoot is actually quite easy to do. And it begs the question why, for instance, and to the best of my knowledge, people like Basque, people like the Game Conservancy, Sparshot, the other various agricultural colleges,
Countryside Alliance,
the Countryside
huge
Alliance,
organisation that nobody ever berates.
Exactly. Well, there might be a reason for that, but we'll come on to that later. You have all these groups, and how many of them run a brief course to instruct people on how to get the best from their video content, right, what it might be? I mean, just as an example, I don't know, pick something at random. I can think of more than a few people on some of the pigeon shooting Facebook pages, just because I'm stuck on Facebook, who post marvellous pigeon shooting videos. They're a pleasure to watch if you're a pigeon shooter. I have to say there might be a limit to the number of those that you might post outside of the immediate shooting arena. But when you look at what that video actually purports to be, apart from the general license stuff, just set that to one side for a moment, it's about food production. It's about the sustainable harvesting of a renewable resource. This is an extremely green way of sourcing protein, and perhaps looking at...
And defending carbohydrate production at the same time.
And defending carbohydrate production at the same time. And I'm just kind of thinking, well, why aren't more people doing more cooking content in some of the videos that they produce? Because at the end of the day, whether it's high on your list of priorities as a shooter, the simple fact of the matter is why you do it is to produce food. And it's nutritious, it's full of protein, blah, 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 all the good things, tastes great. But it's a concept that people who are outside the main sphere of shooting can actually relate to. It's very difficult for someone some confused person who's tied up with all this green nonsense, all this Extinction Rebellion, end of the world, etc. Drivel. It's extremely difficult for them to argue against food production in the way that we're looking at doing it. And I think that one of the things that you should be doing before this goes out and someone else has the same idea is to get in touch with some of these bodies, particularly the agricultural colleges, and say, look, I can come along, it's a very reasonable price, I'll give you a lecture for a day, we'll talk through the equipment, what it is that you need to be producing. I mean, and then you're talking to gamekeepers, people who are in the field 24 hours a day. Gamekeepers, only because this thought occurs to me, are also very often at the sharp end of a lot of the criticism of shooting. Wouldn't it be nice if collectively the evidence that you could glean from the kind of constant ongoing video production that they could in fact do at very little cost and very little effort would actually figure substantially in subsequent defence of the sport?
Yeah, but one of the problems that I have with the shooting community is it's not just old in terms of its PR and economically, marketing, all that stuff. Basically everyone involved in the shooting community is also more conservative. So it would be nice if every gamekeeper strapped a GoPro to their head. But to be frank, like 80% of them wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
We spoke to a lot. We have spoken to a lot of gamekeepers. I know a lot of gamekeepers, and we've trying to get some in front of camera is quite hard.
It's a nightmare.
It's not
There
impossible.
are various
it's
political reasons, but I do think there's social reasons as well.
And like everything in life, didn't say it was going to be easy.
But that's the point about the teaching and stuff. If you get that into the younger generation of
Exactly.
keepers, then you have a massive movement.
Yeah.
I do also, I see the PR problem in shooting a bit fatally. I think food is a good angle to come at it with. But one of the things that strikes me as complex is that I understand the necessity to get people involved in marketing and PR that are from the shooting world, but I also do seriously doubt the extent to which they could meaningfully make a difference because of that problem. Like I say to Johnny, I think the biggest problem to the shooting community isn't the antis, I think it's apathy and just sheer indifference. And then, of course, anyone who is indifferent is going to side with the antis because it's a more emotional argument. But it's more about the world is so different and people are so indifferent. If you are too deep into the shooting community, I don't think it's going to work. Like, I think it might actually take some of these major, big-time PR people who are in London, not people who are in the countryside who do PR and they get paid 30,000. Talking people who charge 100,000 for the year. People who are freelance companies that are seriously good, seriously modern, who are actually indifferent with the shooting world. They're only there because they're being paid to do it. It might take that sort of person who really gets it to make a difference. I do see a lot of in the shooting world people who are small time, to be frank, because this is a countryside sport.
Do you think
someone big?
Do you think that there's an argument there for an exploration of that? I mean, I don't profess to know enough about marketing, PR, and that kind of thing to make any meaningful comment on it. All I know is what I see, which is that when you look across the internet, we seem to be being kicked shitless at every level by the likes of, think of your
Wild Justice League Against Cruel Sports,
etc. Think of your favourite hate figure of the moment. And
hate speaker.
Hate speaker, yes. Their message is rubbish. What they come out with is drivel. But what they do manage to do is to get an awfully large number of people to view it.
They get everyone in the city's attention. They get all the young people's attention.
Indeed,
it's extremely difficult to find the shooting world's equivalent of that. But it can be done.
Have we looked? And how much? I mean, without mentioning figures, most of the shooting organisations have significant sums of money in the bank.
Yeah.
And I mean significant. We're talking many millions of pounds salted away for a rainy day.
It's raining.
Well, you may not have noticed it, shooting organisations, but it's actually peeing down at the moment.
Right.
And maybe now would be a good time to look at some serious investment in some long-term strategies
They are big ships, and as Sash alluded to, they are conservative in their nature. So we did the grass shooting problem with the NGO, and I think that was a real step in a forward moving direction for them.
Yeah.
And there's potential they'll be doing more of that.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's still small scale. If there were 20 people doing it and really making noise, and then more importantly, a group of 100 people behind them optimizing the internet to promote these things, when people do search the questions, it doesn't come up with the baddies, if you like. It comes up with science and logic.
Yeah.
However, science and logic never wins, and emotion does.
Yeah, I'm not convinced science and logic is the remedy. To the current
problem is that
situation.
the easiest emotion to sell in the shooting world to the rest of the world, and it's an image that nobody will want to portray, is pity, because you can pity a gamekeeper who's having his livelihood trashed by people. You can pity somebody whose family's being threatened by nasty people.
Yeah.
But again, those are all. They
nobody
are
wants to be the pity pie.
to an
do they?
extent.
they're all
Yeah.
strategies that, to the best of my knowledge, nobody has really experimented with.
Look, I firmly believe that a bunch of young people need to come in and just fill in this massive hole in the market, financially, socially, and for the shooting world. And it's going to take some real liberal young people to come in and be like, this is all wrong. Those people, they're going to get a lot of money because they'll be the new stars of the shooting world. They're going to cause a lot of disagreements, a lot of controversy from the shooting world. But that's your only hope in the shooting world continuing.
Problem is, you need the
That
money and
is
the
the
weight
facts.
behind them, which is currently sat in the upper
someone to fund
echelons,
it.
right?
Just get someone to fund it. Like, right, yeah. And there's no way that Basque is going to give them the money.
Well, you don't
There's the
know.
irony, isn't it? It's no,
But it's going to happen.
You don't. I mean, like all these things, sometimes the speed that change takes place at it can appear to be glacial, but there is changes in the offing. There is a gradual realisation. I mean, again, I am not a Basque spokesman, but I feel able to comment on what I've seen with my own eyes. We've gone from producing a handful a year of video masterpieces that nobody's watched to about to be doing something else. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the something else is.
I don't want to talk on the Basque video situation because I don't really feel like I'm qualified, nor
Well, no, I'm
actually have like
I'm
some
just-
stake in that, and it's not.
I'm
I
just
mean,
I'm making the point that it's a route that they went down, that they were driven down, with cattle prods many years ago, to engage with, because the view very much from the older people on
hide.
It was actually wasn't hide.
Really?
No, not at all. It was more, this internet thing. It's a passing fancy. It's a load of rubbish.
I think that's fair enough to think that. I think if I was older, I would probably think the same thing. Like,
But equally, sorry to keep talking
No, it's
across
fine,
you,
it's fine.
but I think that attitude is changing. People are beginning to realise, even some of the older, more crusty ones in higher positions,
Right.
and they're thinking, we're losing this. We're losing this battle. It's patently obvious that there's something we've either done wrong in the past or we haven't done at all.
Right.
So they are now looking round to look at ways of redressing that.
Is the whole anti-shooting feeling new? How
I
early in
don't-
your
That's a good
recollection
question.
do you feel
right.
I don't.
people disliked us?
My personal belief is that if you were to, I'm trying to think of a framework to put this in. Let me try this one. Although most of my working days spent outside, sort of in the field, not literally the field, but out and about all over the place. But I work in an office which has a very broad cross section of people. Any way that you want to look at it, we've got black people, brown people, Muslim people, Jewish people,
Are there any Serbs?
Christians. Not that I can think of. There's a few Bulgarians.
Racist.
Not as good as the gun shop.
There's-
Clearly.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is that it's a broad church in terms of its constituent members, and it's probably roughly representative of the world in the greater context within the UK. And occasionally I will introduce things into the conversation just to kind of test the water. Now, I can think there are at least 5 people that I can think of within my immediate circle at work who shoot in some way, shape or form, or have no degree of hostility towards it. And the other people who are overhearing these conversations, who are partaking of them, what I've never had happen is someone throwing their toys out of the pram and saying, I'm offended
Right.
by what you're saying. We've had some interesting debates about people who share a different view, but they've been debates. occasionally you'll get somebody who holds a very strong viewpoint, and you'll have to part at the end of the day agreeing to differ. But equally, I can again think of 2 or 3 people who started off not being very keen about what I'm talking about in terms of shooting, but then having listened to the thing in a much wider context, have actually moved from a position of opposition to at least one of neutrality, and in many cases to one veering more towards support than hostility.
Right.
And I think the vast majority of people probably don't care, and what we're seeing at the moment is it's kind of where we are with this whole PR thing, and the promotion of views. There's another whole debate about having a generation who seem unable in writing to have a reasoned discussion about something, because I don't meet enough of them. I don't know how this translates to a face-to-face conversation in the real world. But certainly on Facebook, they hide behind the anonymity of it,
Yeah.
which is, I don't agree with you, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
To I don't agree with you because X, Y, and Z, and you can have a discussion. You can, as we've said before, at the end of that, still not agree, but at least part not worried that person's going to come round and firebomb your house.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is really where there are all sorts of other psychological aspects of the internet, which have led to hardening of views amongst some of the more some of the more extreme ends of the scale.
Yeah, one of the things we wanted to talk about in the grouse shooting problem was the idea of echo chambers on social media. So you follow a conservative page, you follow a liberal page, an animal rights page, whatever. The algorithm is then going to just give you page after page, which is reminiscent of that politics.
You say, mate,
and you just go down a wormhole.
I have been
conservative. You
forced to
become
view vegan stuff on Facebook. Something in the algorithm clearly thinks I'm a vegan now. I'm not sure what it is.
It's because
Algorithm
at
thinks I'm a
heart
vegan.
you are a vegan that just eats meat. That's
A
what
vegan
it
who
is.
kills animals and eats them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
I-
beautiful thing.
Do that and eats eggs from chickens, and isn't really a vegan.
Just eats game meat.
Drinks milk because he's
Right,
actually.
we don't need to talk about that. So I think
Sorry.
here's what the world needs to stop making boring stuff.
Yeah.
It's just boring people with boring filmmaking.
There is some
I'm
great people out
victim
there.
to it as well. I
There is
make
100%
a lot of
some great
boring
people.
videos. I'm not that good yet. I've only been making videos for a couple of years, but there definitely needs to be a shift in interestingness. Field sports are like a godsend to this community. I really do think that. I think
100%.
it's like, wow, imagine if field sports wasn't around. I do wonder, would have Basque sort of taken field sports' place eventually if field sports wasn't around? Are field sports making Basque lazy with the video content?
Well, I think Basque, being as big as they are, have too many political ties to make the sort of edgy
Right.
content that field sports can.
Yes. And
don't need to be edgy, just with a bit of octane to it.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, edgy,
absolutely.
They can question.
They
They
need to
can
be young.
question their.
This-
Where are the
ideas.
young
this,
talents?
this is. I mean,
Everyone's old.
You've hit a nail on the head there, which is one I'm very keen to pursue, which is this: that our organisations have grown too comfortable working in boxes and silos, and I'm going to try and keep saying Basque, but a field sports organisation that feels the need to enter into the arena of supplying visual information in its own defence has become obsessed with the idea of actually employing somebody. Think of all the on costs that there are with staff members. There's pension provision. There are significant hidden costs over and above the salary aspect of it, which is useful to know when you look at what the other alternatives are, which is why don't they fund and direct, where it's appropriate, some of the pre-existing video producers. You talk about Field Sports Britain. Yes, I mean, fantastic. Some of the work that they've done recently, where they've had no political constraints. They've not had to go, for instance, the next week to the Labour conference, having kind of slagged off socialism, if you know what I mean, in a previous video. You get someone else to do that, so that you can still go to the Labour conference and come across as all bright and shiny. You get someone else.
The problem is I can almost see that if they did, Basque, if they funded that, are going to want to say. They're going to add a political tie into someone. Let's say, just using Field Sports Spirit as an example, thanks guys, that it would add a political tie to them, meaning that they could not be as free by proxy. So it needs to be anonymous. And as such, they're never going to do it because they're never going to get their flag waved for the money.
Right. I understand their problem, obviously. When I say would they be field sports, I just mean in terms of size. I don't mean in terms of tone and content.
Only just for viewer clarification, you mean Field Sports Britain?
Yes.
Sorry.
It's just they're the staple of the community, just call them field sports.
Yeah.
We're on first name basis. David slapped my bum at the countryside when I was saying. And it's true.
It is true.
He said, "Son, you are the new me. Just better looking." And I said, "David, I'm blushing."
And suddenly it went from truth into fantasy, Sash.
I know.
The village idiot came back out to play.
But I mean, again, just to look across the board, I think we've got all the necessary components in place. It's not as if we're looking at the likes of video production as being something worthy of continuing with and thinking, oh my God, how do we do that? We haven't got the gear, etc., etc. We've got the gear, we've got the skill. All the mechanics are there, and as with so many of these things, it's just a question of marshalling the resources, point it in the right direction, and send it off.
Serge spoke about having a union.
Forgive me, we'll go on to that, but it's very specific. When I say it's boring, needs to be fun, we need young people, it's because of this. You don't need people who are good at production, who've got all the good equipment. It doesn't need to look pretentious like a lot of the stuff I make is. It's pointless. I do that because I'm trying to get better, and that's my own polite, right? What you need is young people who are social media influencers, etc. All the big stars on YouTube who have millions of followers don't make pretentious cinematography and all that bollocks. What they do is they make simple camera and make it fun. They're young, people like them. Young people see them and go, oh my God, I want to be that person. And then they buy their merch and become millionaires. That's what we need in the shooting world. Like social media dominating that has almost nothing to do with production quality. Has little to do with great storytelling, to be frank. If you want to get a lot of attention online, you need young people who have that wow factor. We need them in the shooting community. But guess what? They don't exist.
No, you haven't found them yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, they do
We've
exist.
been
There's people who are pushing it, and I think we're pushing that line. The guys at Slots Media are pushing that line. There's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of Instagram people out there who are pushing that line into new, fun, exciting territory.
But they're not. They don't have the X factor. That's the thing.
Yeah, but you can't turn it on its head overnight.
No.
It needs to be.
I understand.
The next generation. I know it might be too little too late, but give it 5 years, and there will be another generation who'll come through and rock it better because they'll have seen the example that people now in their late 20s are setting, and take that and go, what? We can actually have fun in the shooting world. We don't have to be completely. I would say not respectful.
Broom handle up your ass.
Yeah, and I think certainly. All of my generation, my friends, we're still constrained by the respect that we were taught to have for everything that we do.
But
I don't want to lose that. You need to.
And I must apologise because I happily admit I'm still stuck in a time warp when I talk about production facilities. I still misunderstand the fact that it isn't the quality of the film that is what you would judge it on. It's the content, and it can be the crappiest piece of film, excuse me, but it captures a particular moment or expresses a sentiment, and that's what's important. And we're gradually moving towards an understanding of what makes that particular medium work.
Yeah, it's like the real pop channels on YouTube. They're not making good content either. They just connect with young people.
Some of them
all
are making
the young
contact as well. I think
some of them, of course, Of course, there are great people who are doing really successful. But what I'm talking about is like a completely different breed of youngster. Yeah. But I'm not convinced that someone could ever get that social media famous who is a hunter. But that is like...
So you're talking about conversely, for getting somebody who also, it's a bit like a Joe Rogan, somebody who's famous for something completely different.
We need a Joe Rogan. We need a Joe Rogan in the UK.
Who is Joe Rogan?
Joe Rogan is...
It's Joe Rogan.
It's what, Tony?
Joe Rogan is a comedian.
He's a podcaster now, most famous.
Comedian turned podcaster, very famous, but you wouldn't quite know. He sort of lives slightly in the underbelly of what the older generation would know.
And what
He's
does
got the
he-
biggest podcast in the world. Every podcast he does gets, I think with iTunes, about
Millions.
10 million
Yeah.
Yeah.
listens, which is crazy. He does like
What
2
does
a
he
week.
talk about?
Anything.
Anything.
He is
There
on a
no
voyage
point.
of
That's
education,
great
isn't he?
content. Yeah.
This is it. He just will speak to anybody
He's
and be
interesting.
utterly open to listen to what they have to say, and then it becomes a conversation between them. It's
Yeah.
fascinating, and he's really easy to listen to
Yeah.
because he's so very welcoming in the way he.
Yes.
I think he single-handedly has done more for hunting PR.
He started
than
hunting
anyone.
in 2012, and
Is he American or?
He's
American,
American.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely game-changing in his
Yeah,
project.
yeah, he's
Absolutely
started. He
game
started
changer.
hunting in 2012, and subsequently has done a lot for hunting. He's pro
became-
hunting.
Slightly part of popular culture.
Yeah.
Like, because he is such an avid hunter, it's one of the things you identify.
And he regularly
about
has
him.
hunters on his show
On the
as well.
show, they talk about how much they love nature, your
Yeah.
hero.
Steve Renella, Cam
Love
Haynes,
Steve,
the
yeah.
gang. Imagine all 3 of those in a room. I don't think I'd walk in there. I don't think I'd have the nous.
I think you'd have a heart attack. I don't
I
think
almost
you'd
had a heart attack when I met Paul Children.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. When you first met Paul, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed in my life. It was like watching, what is it, Cocoon, like the caterpillar
You guys will see that video soon.
coming to. Yeah, they'll see it soon.
And sorry, and who was this?
Paul Childerley,
All right, yes.
Good sports.
Yeah, yeah.
Phil Sports. Yeah, it was momentous to say the least. And
Anyway.
shot like the best pigeon. All right, sorry.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
I do feel like there would be room for a hunters conservationist
Right,
social media
right.
union.
Okay, so you wanna talk about that, yeah?
Why not?
Okay. Talk to me about what it is.
So you get anybody. I'm going to say anybody. There has to be qualifying factors to start with.
Mhm.
There has to be a certain amount of subscribers, a certain amount of traction, a certain amount of voice, regardless of whether that is a Facebook group,
Yeah.
a Instagram, a
Mhm.
YouTube,
All
A forum
influencers, Yeah.
influencers.
Mhm.
I think influencers is a good word for it, and the ability to sit down around a table and talk about our issues and talk about things. Because if we all worked together on certain,
Create one, maybe even 2 larger campaigns a year. That
yes,
when I sort of think about it, I think like,
movements,
yeah, a real movement with real people behind it.
because that is a way to build weight.
But so this is the logistical hurdle that we found, that I found.
Okay.
I'll say. Phil Sports is such a Phil Sports Britain beefy presence
Now,
that
We'll-
whatever they do has such a huge influence
on many.
on what everyone else would do. We could team up with everyone. Everyone, me, you, Dave Carey, all the gang, right? TSC, meet up.
Shooting chair.
Without Phil Sports in it, I do question.
I 100%
what the point
would
of
say
it,
that
but then
Phil
I do
Sports would
also
be in
think
on it. They are progressive.
that would
like.
be good of them, yeah. But I would like to think that they would, but I'm a bit of a pessimist. Like,
Well,
I'm thinking if I was them, would I bother?
ask them.
I asked David.
Yeah,
Well,
I've got-
I've
probably
messaged him,
formulate this more.
no.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
I've been messaging him too much lately. I don't want to annoy him.
like you, I've got my phone is in the car. Otherwise, I'd phone him out. But give him a ring.
No, I don't want to get on his nerves.
Well, I think you've done that already.
That's where he smacked you on the bum. It's like that wasn't in a pleasant way. That was him wanting to put him across your knee and teach you for being just a naughty boy.
I haven't washed that cheek since the day.
I remember that Simpsons episode from when I was a kid.
When,
Beautiful. I love
when
you,
Sasha, are you going to approach Sparshall?
Okay, so I had been debating. I would love to go to Sparshot and give some talks about videography and encourage people who are in the shooting world, young people, to get involved in videography and let them know that there's good money in it. There's a very fruitful life.
Is it?
Not here. The first thing I'll do is go, but don't join the gun shop.
I'm
Eat
proud of
some
you for
mud.
being a martyr and helping us build this
I
project.
feel like there'll come a time where I leave the shooting world, because I'm not a shooter, as I'm sure some people know.
Mhm.
That would be a really nice seed to leave behind.
Yes.
Imagine that. And then I'll make them sign a contract that says they have to give me 20% of all their money,
Royalties.
and they have to wear a sash Novakovic made my
They have to wear an
t-shirt.
awful hat like that one you had made for yourself.
No, they have to wear this hat. No, with sash on it, yeah. A picture of my face on
The
hat.
TGS Village
Yeah.
Idiot hat.
I could give out free merch when I'm there.
No.
Just with pictures of my face. No, but meaningfully, I do feel like that would be a nice thing, because I really do think someone needs to do it. But again, probably David Wright, my old mate, my old man. he's probably the man for the job.
But the problem comes is that David Wright, just like us, is working his bollocks off to produce enough content to make, I wouldn't say ends meet, but to make what we do viable.
Yeah.
I'm nervous right now
should
doing
go
this
in
bloody
there.
podcast, and I'm going to be the one editing the video, which means I can just pick and choose whenever I want to.
Yeah,
What am I saying? It's
will,
Sparshot.
you will get over that, won't you? This is all about.
Right.
Before I came out this morning, I had 10 or 15 minutes to kill, and I sat down and I turned on my iPhone, and for some reason, something that popped up, which I watched from start to finish. Who's the lunatic motorcycle racer? The bloke from up the Midlands somewhere.
Guy Martin.
Sorry.
Not Guy Martin. Guy Martin?
Is it what's his
Petrolhead.
Yeah. And
Yeah, he's not a professional. Well, yeah, he's TV man.
Yeah.
TV man likes
But
fast stuff.
yes, Martin is his surname, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
Guy
can't remember.
It's
what?
Guy Martin, isn't it?
Guy Martin, that's
Yeah.
it. Sorry. Anyhow, yes, we got there in the end.
Yeah.
It was a clip by Guy Martin of his undergoing the trainasium part of the P company that the parachute regiment do, because he was doing a programme about 1944 and D-Day and the invasion of Europe.
No, he jumped out of the plane, didn't he?
Eventually,
Yeah.
but this shows him it's actually easier to jump out of an aircraft than it is to do this
To jump off the thing.
trainasium thing, which is a complete nightmare if you have a thing about heights where you're still connected to the ground. However, he did it. He got bollocked from left, right, and centre by the RSM. But when you watch what happened, it was a bloke who, first time up, almost 60 feet in the air, is walking upon two scaffold tubes with no safety net. Now that takes a bit of doing. Now he had the right mental frame of mind in the first instance, and with the instruction and the guidance that he was given, he completed that part of the task. What you're saying is exactly the same thing, and all you're talking about is sitting in front of a camera and talking, rather than walking across two slippery pipes 60 feet up in the air that's going to kill you if you fall
Well, I
off.
could do that, no problem, but the camera is scary.
Well,
Well, you know about Sasha is he is probably the most nimble person I know.
yes,
Yeah, this is what I was trying
He
to tell
has
you.
toes that grip into trees.
And-
Like,
and-
I've seen him walk down a branch the size of his leg, and barefoot in the rain
Yeah.
on
Yes.
moss,
That's a
and he
fact.
didn't fall off.
no.
That is a fact. I appreciate the words of encouragement, and to be honest, I'm not that bad with the nerves in front of the camera. It's just, I don't know, don't really want to do it. We are thinking about me and Johnny hosting a podcast, so if you
Yeah,
found
we are thinking
anything
about- yeah.
that came out my mouth today remotely interesting, go ahead and
Absolutely.
tell
Well,
me.
it makes the podcast more regular, and then we can have visitors
Right.
on the podcast together. Right? I mean,
And I can also get you to give up how you really feel about a lot of stuff.
is there going to be whiskey involved?
100%.
Sounds good, man.
Yeah. Like, let
Right.
me just check that this is still on.
Anyway, back to the point where we should finish up on a really major connected subject. We all probably feel very different of. Grip and grins, kill shots, the whole sitting there with your bag in a photo. How do you all feel about that? Nick?
I think that in times which are as sensitive as they are, and let's not forget, for instance, that the whole general license thing has not gone away. It's going to be reviewed
Come
in
back
January.
next year. The Welsh have gone through it recently as well.
And that didn't turn out well. To continue to supply potential adversaries, if not with ammunition, in the sense that they'll be putting it on their own Facebook pages to say, look how evil these people are, but just as proof of the fact that significant shooting is still taking place. Not that the purpose of the license, of the general license, was to reduce that. And I'm sorry, I'm talking specifically about pigeons.
Yeah.
I do have a bit of an issue, particularly where it involves a wild quarry other than wood pigeons. But the population dynamics of the wood pigeon are such that you can hammer the hell out of them.
And winter's going to take them back to baseline anyway, so it doesn't make much of a difference.
But they are an incredibly successful species who seem thus far to have been able to resist everything that we've thrown at them. So the wood pigeon is not in any conservation concern whatsoever.
Okay, so don't post the pictures of that which might be under conservation concern.
But it's
So if you shot 20 widgeon, you wouldn't post a picture.
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't post a picture anyway.
I wouldn't post a picture.
You think
anyway.
people should not post a picture?
I think people should think before they do it, and occasionally you see them with an accompanying comment. You know, a flight pond last night. We shot 96 ducks. Now these are wild birds. You can't replace them. It opens up a whole question of exploitation of resource, in the sense that these are very often fed flight ponds, and it's the perspective that other people, the inference that other people can draw from what is posted on the internet. Notice that I'm not saying that you shouldn't be doing it. I'm questioning the wisdom.
I think there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, even if you sort of look back to it. And I think going sort of just to argue it out for certain duck shooters that I know, wild duck shooters who do shoot larger bags. But you know what? They also have large lakes. They do a lot for wetland conservation, and they do provide good habitat, breeding habitat, safety. And they do go. They might shoot 100 in a day, but they're not going to do it every day.
No.
So I think there's a right way and a wrong way of doing
Yes.
it. And I think the flip side of posting the picture of shooting 96 ducks should be look at this cool, not look at the cool conservation that I'm doing,
Yeah.
because that's a kind of a bit crap post. But you know,
It's a question of context.
adding more than just if you just put constantly death posts,
Yes.
that perhaps puts the wrong
Yeah.
thing there.
Right.
And that's essentially what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
I you can tell by the way I'm vacillating that I'm trying to come out with a comment that
It's
makes
way too complex a subject to put anything
Yes.
coherent together on
It-
without offending someone or not putting the complete picture across.
I don't have a problem with offending people, but I don't want to offend the wrong people for the wrong reason.
And do it ignorantly.
I don't have an issue with you shooting X number of birds, but I do have an issue on the reason why you would want to put that into a public media where people can draw an inference that might ultimately affect me from.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an opinion on it, to be honest. I think a lot of what I see is tasteful. If it's a real explicit,
Fox cut
picture
off.
of the wound or whatever, like,
It's
doesn't
just
need
a bit
that.
vile.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it is tasteful. You can take a picture of a dead animal, but I think you're probably right. If your whole page is dedicated to dead animals, it looks a bit weird.
My whole theory on it is not cheapening it. So
Right, make it tasteful.
yeah, well, be it the kill shot or the words that you use. It's about having respect for the death of that animal,
Yes.
and
Right.
I think not posting pictures cheapens it in a way, or at least not appreciating it and remembering that moment cheapens it in some way. That you do need to respect and remember the animals you kill. I don't think there's anything wrong with
Oh, absolutely.
that trophy aspect of going, I shot 100 pigeons today. I'm proud of it. I did a good job as a shooter. I did an ethical job as a shooter. And I did a great job for the crop protection, if we're looking at pigeons. Or I provided X amount of meat for my family. There's nothing wrong with
Right.
being proud of what we're doing. I think we have been forced over the last few years, certainly, to feel guilt for what we do. Even though we don't feel guilty for what we do, you go, oh, I shouldn't do that because I'm kind of will feel guilty that we might offend somebody, which nobody wants to do, right? But at the same time, in itself is an admission of guilt,
Yeah.
or is a cheapening what we do. Is you go, oh, now let's go shoot that nice buck. And I'm not saying that you feel like you should, but I don't feel like you should feel like you shouldn't be able to.
Yes.
No, I mean I understand that completely, and I can understand the argument.
Fear of hate speech should not be a reason
no,
to not post.
and
The dying words of your Iron Cross.
I have very mixed emotions. I think is probably the fairest way of summing it. I don't have a problem with the principle of the thing. There are some posts that, for various reasons, I find more offensive than others. Some I think are quite beautiful in their content,
Mhm.
in the sense that they fulfil all
All your personal
all
requirements.
my personal requirements for, honouring the species that the bird, whatever it is that you've killed.
And one should always have respect for that. There's
Absolutely,
no
yes.
doubt about that whatsoever.
So yes, I'm kind of happily vacillating from one extreme to the other.
We have to go and shoot the new Ealing Pro Eco Wads at Pattern Plate
In the rain.
in the rain. It's fitting, isn't it?
Yes.
We've had one dangling in a cup, and you guys probably would have seen that video by the time this goes out. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care. Goodbye. Thank you very much to both of you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And until next week.